Guys, it's Monday, October 26th, and this is the overview video, the unboxing video for the second lesson in mythology. We're going to be starting Oedipus Rex this week. We'll be doing that over the course of the next 3 weeks. So if you go to your class teams page, you will notice that the assignment has been dropped. It's been posted live, and you are going to see the pacing schedule and the assignment entry page or entry post here. Just like with the first week of mythology, I have divided up the work throughout the week so you can turn it in on schedule, or you can do this all at once if you want. You can split it up like it says here. Today would be the day we open up and look at the materials and do some of the background learning, the information that you'll need to know before you start reading Oedipus Rex. This week we'll be looking at 5 different literary elements, which are the tools we use to talk about, to analyze what is going on in a story, a poem, a play, anything that has to do with literature. You know, if we want to eat something, we can eat with our hands, or we can eat with a fork, a knife, a spoon, and stuff like characterization, conflict, setting. These are the fork and knife and spoon of analysis. We also will talk a little bit about foreshadowing and irony and dramatic irony this week, because all these things will apply to Oedipus Rex and the story that we will be reading over the next few weeks. So again, you should be looking at the PowerPoint today. You can be looking at this video, hopefully, to give you just the overview, the sense of what's going on. Completing the do now and learning about central idea and literary elements. Over the next few days, you should be reading the story, the first part of the story. We've split it up into sections, and in your reading, you'll see where to stop. And you'll be answering the questions in your organizer as well. So let's get right to it. Let's open up this assignment. And go into student view, and you'll see the instructions that are set up. It's very much set up like the way it usually is. A little bit of background, our lesson goals for the week, what to do, and the due date. So again, if you haven't done the first week of Mythology Unit yet, you should go back and do that first, because that is obviously our setup, our introduction. We talk a lot about central idea there as well. This assignment will be due by Monday, November 2nd, and late hand in by Tuesday, November 3rd. And then you'll notice there's 3 files that you can download. There's the PowerPoint, there's the reading, there's the graphic organizer, and we'll take a quick look at them all in this video. Okay. So this is our introduction, prologue, and episode 1, our first part of Oedipus the King by the Greek playwright Sophocles. And as you look through this PowerPoint, you'll find is the do now, which will be 5 different statements. You choose 2 to agree or disagree with. Respond in the organizer by highlighting whether you agree or disagree with these statements that have to do with the story, and explain why you view that way. It's not enough to just say, oh, I agree or disagree. You gotta finish the sentence and explain your answer in order to get credit for the do now, and you know, make it a good couple sentences. Again, the more involved your do now, the higher score you will get. If it's just a simple answer, you'll get a basic grade. So some statements here related to the play. Concepts. It is possible to escape or trick fate, which is a predetermined destiny. If we are in charge, we are exempt or excused from consequences. Family secrets are best kept as just that, secrets. If knowing the truth leads to pain, it is better not to know it. and it is better to place blame on those around us than to look inside ourselves. So these are good thematic statements, and as I said, they all have to do with the play. So choose to respond to it and figure out your answer. From there, we give a couple of slides of background on the writer and about Greek society that was going on around 497 BCE, which is when Sophocles was born. So the 497 to the 500s was a lovely time from what I can remember, not having been alive then. But again, Sophocles is one of the best known ancient Greek playwrights, wrote 120 plays, 90 of them tragedies. And this goes through a little bit about the background about Greek society, what was going on in the governments and the ruling classes. Importantly for our play, for literature, because this is a tragedy, we give you the concepts of tragedy, tragic hero, and tragic flaw. Greek tragedy focuses on what's called the reversal of fortune, where there's some sort of downfall or a fall, fall from grace for a hero, and what happened to get there. The tragic hero is the main character in these types of plays, and they have actions that they do, and there are consequences to those actions as they try to struggle with some sort of conflict or thought about what their life is like or what they have to go through. And that tragic flaw sometimes is also known as hubris or exaggerated pride, too much self-confidence, or there could be other fatal flaws that basically results in something happening where the person we were rooting for to succeed, something happens and now they don't. So those are three important concepts as we go forward in the play that you'll want to keep in mind for our lead character, Oedipus. So what if I told you that we are about to discover the story of King Oedipus, called Oedipus Tyrannus in Greek? The tragedy contains one of the most famous riddles ever devised, the riddle of the Sphinx, and is the epic story of murder, incest, and terrible unintended consequences. This slide goes over the Oedipus Complex, and so named after Oedipus, the character. And it's Sigmund Freud's sort of most famous philosophy in psychology or psychoanalysis. There's, a lot of thought that this kind of analysis of the self is not as relevant as it used to be, or maybe there's definitely been some criticisms of it, but the reason we still keep it in terms of showing you it is because of its connection to Oedipus, the character, the idea of what happens to him. But I feel like if you go into further research, this is the basic level, you'll learn more complicated things about what it is in terms of the psychoanalysis and the conception of self and all these things that people have taken their work beyond Sigmund Freud. He's more of a starting point for modern psychoanalysis, but he's definitely not where the end point has, or where the point we're at right now in 2020. But he is important nonetheless. So we did include the slide here, a little bit of information about it. And its connection to the story. And a little bit of spoilers. I think you if you're kind of jiving with what it says, you might be able to already know what might happen with our character or what's going on. Or you maybe have read or heard about the story before. So, I'm not it's not like necessarily a huge, it is a huge spoiler, but it's not like it wasn't known, Not like this came out as a movie last week. I mean, it's out there. It's been out there. So we'll talk more specifically about all the stuff going on in the story on our live classes and then later on as we read more into the story. Some things you do need to know, the chorus that that keeps popping up as you'll see as you read. The chorus is classical Greek drama presence, a group of actors who they either recite poetry or they can sing, they can dance. to explain what's going on in the story, to comment on the story, to explain their feelings, the feelings of the people representing the common person. Sometimes they represent the voice of the gods. And you can look at and click on this picture in the PowerPoint, and you'll be taken to a YouTube video quickly, very quick video from the movie Hercules, as they show you what the chorus does and how the earth was made, what their purpose is in describing that. And the chorus in the movie Hercules is similar to what you'll find in this play. All right, the gods, while mortal rather, and powerful, were not all powerful in the sense of our modern concepts of what a god is or God. They were themselves subject to fate and to each other's will. So there's a lot of interaction, a lot of complicated people relationships going on, even among the Greek gods. And we see this much in Oedipus, where the Delphic oracle, which is pictured here, the prophet of Oedipus is doomed fate. It's not the cause of what happens to him. Excuse me. The gods aren't the cause of what happens to him. They just describe, oh, we know this is going to happen. Oedipus wants to exert some free will. He says, I'm not going to let this happen, this prophecy that the oracle says. I'm going to do my best to avoid it. But free will is not more powerful than destiny. And Oedipus is a perfect example of the belief that try as you might, people can't avoid the destinies to which you're born. And again, this is a central idea that maybe you'll agree with or disagree with. You don't have to agree, you don't have to disagree. You can just take it as it is. All right. And so forth and so on. I'm going to let you guys read the rest of these information pieces for yourself. Try to keep this video a little bit shorter. But you can see that there's more information on literary elements and techniques as well. And this is both on the Word PowerPoint and in your Word document. The two major literary elements we're always going to, the fork and knife, that we're always going to go back to are characterization and conflict. What do we know about the characters? What does the story tell us about the characters? What can we figure out about the characters by their speech, their thoughts, their effect on others, and emotions that they feel, the actions that they have, and the looks, how they appear, how they're dressed, what they wear, and what do all these things tell us about these characters? Everything tells us something about the character and what might happen because of what we learn about them, or what the writer has them say or do or think. So again, characterization is a big part of this. Conflict is a big part of our literary analysis. Conflict has two types: internal conflict, which is our struggles within ourselves, our thoughts, our fears, our worries, our desires, our goals and ambitions. We struggle to deal with those and confront those in a successful way and cope with life. And then there's the external conflicts, the fights between outside forces, whether it's society, whether we feel the government or people treat us well, if we have a dispute with a specific person, whether we feel that we've been wronged by someone, nature, obviously, if it's a rainy day like it is today, it's a little bit gloomy. Do we really want to be caught in the rain? And if we are, that's an external conflict, being caught in the rain or snow. And then the supernatural, the idea of, in this case, Oedipus versus the gods versus his fate. Can we really fight against what is out there? I mean, again, these are all very hypothetical, but in each story that you read, there's always characterization, there's always conflict, and there's pretty much always a setting where the story takes place. There's also dramatic irony, the audience and irony itself. Specifically, dramatic irony is a type of irony where the audience knows something the characters don't. In the beginning of this play, we're all going to know the big deal about what's happening. And why do we know that? A lot of Greek plays do use this philosophy of telling you, this is happening, now watch it unfold. Now, some people don't want to know the end of the book before it happens. Some people do. But think about why we when we know something and somebody else doesn't, what effect that has, you know? Do you feel a little bit more anticipation perhaps to see what happens with that character once they finally discover what the deal is? When we look at, you know, somebody who is about to back into something and they don't realize it, and, you know, we try to stop them, or do we watch them and maybe take some joy in it? I don't know. Depends on the kind of person you are. I'm talking to you. But anyway, the idea of suspense, of finding out what's happening, that's a big part of this, is to actually know what's happening and then see it happening. You know, when we watch a movie and we've already finished watching it, why do we go watch it again? I mean, I've seen Avengers Endgame, I don't know, 15 times at this point. It's only been a couple of years since it was out, maybe about a year and a half. And the record time of this recording, and I still go watch, and I know what's happening. I know what happens. I want to watch it again because I like what I see when I watch it. I enjoy it. There's something about watching it happen over and over again that's interesting. Foreshadowing, because we know what's happening, we can see that these hints of events to come, what might happen. You know, in a mystery story where we don't know what to happen, we don't know who the killer is, or we don't know what's about to happen, lights go out, the murderer is about, right? We don't know what's happening. We're going to keep us guessing. And there are things that people do when building stories to keep us guessing, and that's called foreshadowing. So again, these are things you need to know, literary elements you need to know as we build the story out. And then just a list of the characters. Oedipus, obviously the most important character, King of Thebes, Jocasta, his wife, Creon, his brother, the priest of Zeus, so a priest who represents, you know, the gods, the chorus, which we talked about earlier, Tiresias, who is a blind prophet. There was a slide of prophecy you can read for yourself earlier in this PowerPoint, and then the messenger and the herd of Laius. These are characters later in the story. If you click on the activity here, you'll be able to go to the activity page. If not, you can just click on a separate link here. We are giving you the story. We want you to use our version, but there are other ways to read the story. If you like watching, or if you like listening, I'm sorry, the audio version is available through the library. The slide explains how to access that. The Abraham Lincoln High School Library is free for you. These are just ways of how to log in. And you can get in touch with Ms. Graham if you need more help. And that would be the end of the PowerPoint for week two, part one of Oedipus. All right, so if I click here, reading Oedipus, as we open it up, you'll see the play itself. Now you can go here. You can also go to Spark Notes for a more modern English translation. However, you do still need to use this for annotations. We have included annotations here to explain it, and the SparkNotes version does not have the same annotations. But if you go through this, you'll see our directions, well, things that we'll want you to do. For instance, here we want you to highlight in yellow words that show the priests indicating a disease that plagues the city. We want you to answer the questions here. So again, use this version to answer and annotate questions. And we want you to read pages 1 to 14 of this document. We're giving you the entire document, but only the first 14 pages have been annotated for you. And then the next week, we'll do new annotations for the second part, and the week after that for the final part. Where it says stop here for this week, stop here for this week. You don't have to read anymore. There's a lot of work to do, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of work in other classes. So you can stop there and go back to the organizer. You can keep reading if you want, if you're interested. You want to keep going, by all means, you can keep going. I would recommend stopping though and going into the organizer. Let's do that very quickly. And you can see here that I have given you many different ways to access the text. You can use this link to go back to that reading. You can go to here, to SparkNotes version. And here's the do now. Here's where you fill out the do now. I may also ask you to do this during the video class lesson. We may be doing some discussion of that together. And then we break down the activities by literary element and central idea. And you'll notice now in this document that the questions we want you to answer are highlighted in yellow. We've given you an area to respond. So when I would open this up, I would write my answer here and keep going. So we have this broken down by literary element. You have to read the story in order, hopefully, to answer these questions. As we click through them, talking about Oedipus's conflicts, some of the characterization, and so on like that. And then we come to central idea. Remember, central idea, the lesson that we learn from a story is generalized. It applies to everyone. A key word or phrase could be sometimes in life. You don't necessarily need to use that keyword or phrase, but that generally helps you to start a generalized statement that will be the truth or message about the topic. And then you can talk a little bit more in detail about how it applies to the characters and connect the characters to the central idea. Once you've done that, congratulations, you've finished the week's assignment. If you've answered all the questions, you're ready to turn it in and submit. But please remember, do not turn in your work until you are satisfied that the work you're doing is going to get you a good grade. Do not turn in a blank document. I've posted several times about how to work around that, and you can send me information directly in the chat if you're having issues writing your answers. Let me know, and then you can just take a photo of your work or handwrite your work, take a photo of it, send it to me in the chat. The bottom line is, guys, make sure you're not sending me blank documents, because there's nothing more frustrating than seeing, oh, so-and-so turned something in, and then seeing that there's nothing there. So it's a bummer. It's a bummer for all our teachers, especially me. All right. Anyway, guys, that's your overview for today, Mythology Week 2. Again, follow the pacing schedule. Come to the live classes for help and discussion on the first week of Oedipus Rex. Tuesday is our first live session for this week. And that's about it, guys. Any questions, remember, hit me up in the chat. I'm here for you guys, 8:30 to 2:20, Monday to Fridays. And that's about it. Peace.